David looked at his phone and smiled. His wife called from overseas. Their daughter could not stop asking, "When are you coming home?" David smiled and said, "Soon. Everything is ready. The petition is finished. The documents are complete. We are almost there." A few weeks later, another envelope arrived. It was not an approval. It was a request for evidence. David read the letter once, then again, then one more time. The government was not asking for another marriage certificate. They were asking for something David never realized he had failed to prove: his marriage. Not the wedding, the marriage. That moment changed everything. Because David discovered something thousands of families learned too late. A marriage certificate starts an I-130 petition. It does not finish it. Today we are going to look at the 3 mistakes that delay more family sponsorship petitions than most people realize. The second mistake catches honest families every single year. And the third mistake is often so small that people never notice it until USCIS points directly at it. If someone you love is waiting to come home, these next few minutes could save your family months of waiting. Mistake 1. Believing a marriage certificate proves your marriage. David thought the hardest part was getting married. He never imagined proving the marriage would be even harder. When the wedding ended, the photographs were beautiful. The family celebrated. Everyone believed the difficult part was finally over. David believed it too. He placed the marriage certificate inside the petition, added a few wedding photographs, collected the required forms, and felt confident. Then the request for evidence arrived. For the first time, David realized something important. The marriage certificate proved one thing: a legal marriage happened. It did not prove the marriage was real today. That surprises many families, because they believe the wedding is the evidence. For USCIS, the wedding is only the beginning. The immigration officer has never met you. The officer has never met your husband or your wife. Everything they see and understand about your relationship comes from the documents inside your file. That means every page should answer one simple question. Does this look like 2 people building a real life together? Not just planning a wedding, but sharing a home, sharing responsibilities, making decisions together, growing through everyday life. David looked at his petition again. For the first time, he stopped looking at it as a husband. He started looking at it as the officer who would review the file. The difference was immediate. He saw beautiful wedding photographs, but very little evidence showing what happened after the wedding. That was the missing piece. SIS was not asking, did these 2 people get married? They were asking, are these 2 people living as a married couple? Those are 2 completely different questions. Many families spend months planning the perfect wedding, but only a few spend the same amount of time preparing the story their documents tell. That story matters far more than most people realize, because the strongest petitions are not filled with the most paper. They are filled with the clearest story, and that is exactly where David discovered his second mistake. Mistake 2. Sending more evidence instead of a clearer story. David believed the answer was simple. If USCIS wanted more proof, he would send more documents, more photographs, more messages, more records, more everything. At first, that felt like the safest decision. The thicker the file, the stronger the case. At least, that is what David believed. Then he spoke with someone who had seen hundreds of family sponsorship cases. They asked him one question. If you handed your petition to a complete stranger, could they understand your relationship from beginning to end without asking a single question? David did not answer, because he honestly did not know. That was the moment everything changed. USCIS does not reward confusion. Even when there is a mountain of evidence, an immigration officer may review hundreds of petitions. Every file tells a different story. The easiest files to understand are often the easiest to review. That does not mean approval is automatic. It means your evidence works together instead of competing for. Attention. David looked through his file again. He noticed photographs from different years, bank records, travel records, insurance papers, messages, receipts. Everything was there, but nothing connected. Each document stood alone, like separate pieces of a puzzle that had never been put together. Then David realized something. He had spent months collecting evidence, but almost no time organizing the story. That is the mistake many honest families make. They believe more evidence automatically creates a stronger petition. It does not. Evidence becomes powerful when every document supports the one before it, when one page answers the question created by the previous page, when the officer never has to stop and wonder what happened next. Imagine reading a book where every chapter is out of order. Every page might be true, but the story becomes difficult to follow. A family sponsorship petition works the same way. The goal is not to impress the officer. The goal is to help the officer understand your relationship. That is a completely different way of thinking. David reorganized everything. The beginning of the relationship, the engagement, the wedding, life together after marriage, shared responsibilities, future plans. The final step that gives families peace of mind. David looked at the envelope one last time. Everything was finally inside. The forms were complete. The evidence told one clear story. The mistakes had been corrected. For weeks, he believed this moment would bring relief. Instead, he felt one more question. What happens if USCIS asks about this file 6 months from now? David looked down at the petition. Then he realized something he had never thought about before. The immigration officer would spend hours reviewing this file. Could he remember every page inside it? The answer was no. That realization changed the way he prepared everything. Before sealing the envelope, David made one complete copy of the entire petition, not because he expected another problem, but because he wanted to be ready if one ever appeared. Months can pass between filing a petition and hearing from USCIS. During that time, people move, jobs change, life continues. Details become harder to remember, but the immigration officer will still be reading the documents exactly as they were submitted. That is why experienced families never rely on memory. They rely on preparation. David placed one complete copy in a safe folder. Another copy was shared with his wife. Now both of them could answer questions using the exact same information. For the first time since this journey began, they stopped wondering what they had forgotten because they knew exactly what USCIS would see. That confidence did not come from hoping everything would go perfectly. It came from knowing they were prepared if questions ever came. That is the difference between panic and preparation. Preparation does not promise approval. Preparation does not eliminate waiting. Preparation gives you confidence while the waiting happens. Several weeks later, David opened another envelope from USCIS. His hands still shook, but something had changed. He was not afraid anymore. Every document was organized. Every answer was ready. Every important detail was already in front of him. Whether USCIS asked one question or 10, he knew he was prepared. That is the feeling every family deserves. Not certainty, preparation. Because no honest attorney can promise an approval, but every family can choose how well prepared they are before they file. If there is one lesson to remember from today's video, remember this. A marriage certificate begins your petition. Your evidence tells your story. Consistency builds confidence. Preparation protects your family. The law cannot measure how much you love someone, but your paperwork should make that love easy to understand. If someone you love is preparing an I-130 petition, share this video with them today. One careful review now may prevent months of waiting later. And if you want to better understand the immigration process before your next step, watch our next LawShield USA guide, because protecting your family's future always begins long before you mail the first document. David never found a shortcut. He never found a secret form, and he never found a guarantee. What he found was something much more valuable. He learned that successful family sponsorship is not built on one perfect document. It is built on hundreds of small decisions made before the petition is ever mailed. Every document, every date, every signature, every piece of evidence tells one part of your family's story. When those pieces come together clearly, the immigration officer spends less time asking questions and more time understanding your case. That is why preparation matters, not because it guarantees approval, but because it helps prevent delays that never needed to happen. If your family is preparing an I-130 petition in 2026,